Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Means we're brought to you by Pluckers Wing Bar. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Thanks for hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Both of our Tuesday staples will be here. Just one a little bit out of order. Sharief, Ishaq with us in 15 minutes to talk about how things are going in Saints land. Saints will be at the microphone from 2 to 3 today. So Sharief, usually with us at 2:30, is going to join us a little bit early, kind of preview that. It's a really short week, and it's a dramatic week down there in New Orleans. So we'll get Sharief's thoughts on all of that here coming up in 15 minutes. Glen West always with us at 1:30. We'll talk about the Tigers' dramatic win and what things look like in Fayetteville, Arkansas with Glen West coming up at 1:30. I want to talk about some coaching decisions from Dan Lanning and Lane Kiffin that we didn't get to yesterday, but I'd like to talk about that at the end of the hour here. We'll talk about the college football playoff in hour number 2. I think that conversation's pretty relevant for LSU. It could not be in like 4 days, but it is now. And so we'll talk a little about that in hour number 2. I want to look at some Heisman odds as well. Garrett Nussmeier kind of climbing week by week as LSU wins games. And Brian Kelly obviously met with the media yesterday, and we'll get to some more of his sound in the second hour as well. I thought probably the most impactful discussion that Brian Kelly had yesterday was about LSU's wide receiver position. We know that when Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas moved on, it was going to be difficult for LSU to immediately pick up those pieces and just replace them. I realize you've had some unbelievable duos in purple and gold, from Reed and Clayton all the way back that far to LaFell and Bo, and you can move forward to Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, and certainly Jefferson and Chase. And like, you've had duos and you've been able to create those more than one time. It's not as if it's a once in a generation thing when LSU's got 2 really good wide receivers that go on to great NFL heights. But those 2 guys accounted for 55% of your catches, 62% of your yards, and 70% of your receiving touchdowns last year, and they moved on. So I think all of us kind of suggested preseason, you don't have a top 10 pick at receiver on this team. I don't think so. I don't think you have 2 first-round picks on this team. I don't think you have 2 guys who are destined to go over 1,000 yards on this team. But you've recruited pretty well. You're not relying on a bunch of true freshmen. You ought to be able to have a functional passing game with the collection you've brought, even though it'll look a little bit different and certainly won't provide the name recognition that those 2 guys did last year. And I think that was a reasonable expectation. I personally sat here and told you, like, I'm not ready to just hand Kyron Lacy the keys to the number 1 receiver spot. I said that in camp. Actually, I didn't say that in camp. I said that before camp because it took about 5 practices out there for me to go, I think he can do it. that realization came pretty quickly for me at practice. So by the time we got to August, I had jumped on board, but I wasn't there in July. And he's been that. But the question is kind of like, okay, who's next? You have Chris Hilton coming on. Is he ready to emerge? Well, he gets hurt. You've got Aaron Anderson, who didn't do very much last year. Can he help? Well, he has. Xavier Thomas is kind of a kick returner, but he did have a nice year relative to the rest of Mississippi State's putrid offense last year. So how much does he help? And he's helped a little bit. And then you've got the young bucks. You've got Kyle Parker and Shelton Sampson. Are they ready to step up and help? And you kind of took that group into the season. And Lacy has produced, no question. Hilton has not helped. I didn't mention C.J. Daniels in that interlude, but you brought him in from Liberty, and then he has a meniscus injury. And it doesn't sound like Shelton Sampson's quite ready to play. And so you've got Anderson and you've got Thomas, but they're kind of the same guy. And all of a sudden you look up on Saturday, and Hilton's not dressed, and Daniels is not dressed, and Lacey's lying motionless on the ground in Tiger Stadium while everyone in purple and gold is breathless, and you're looking at a receiver group that's like almost out of guys. And so Brian Kelly talked about that yesterday, specifically the injuries to Hilton and Daniels, and then what they're going to do with Trey'Dez Green. And so we'll hear Brian Kelly on his receivers.
Quite frankly, I think that that's what we have to do. We're probably in a position now where, watching him play, all of the complexities of playing the tight end position can be eliminated by, getting him more in a wide receiver role. And I think we're getting to that point where we've made that decision that has to happen. He's a talented player. We saw him on the touchdown, how easy it is for him to flash his hands and catch the football. And he just gives us more versatility. So, yeah, I think you're going to see that moving forward.
So Trey'Dez Green's a wide receiver now for this team. And that's amazing to me, not because he doesn't have the physical gifts to play wide receiver. He very much does. He is 6'7", he is 245 pounds, and that's bigger than most wide receivers. But he runs plenty well, he jumps plenty well, and he's not exactly Anthony Munoz trying to block and pass protection, okay? It's the first great left tackle I could think of. His game is geared towards catching the football, and it's going to be for the rest of his football career, whether that's 3 more years at LSU, whether that's 2 more years at LSU and a first-round pick, 2 more years at LSU and a 6th-round pick. He makes a team, makes a Pro Bowl, gets cut in training camp. However far Trey'Dez Green goes in the world of football, it's going to be catching the ball. And you saw that, as Brian Kelly just mentioned, in the game on Saturday when they put him in there in the slot and he ran that slant route over the middle of the field and caught that touchdown on LSU's first score of the game. He's immensely talented. Immensely talented. There's a reason this guy was the number 1 tight end recruit in the country coming out of high school. There's a reason this guy averaged 27 points per game as a junior in high school on the basketball court. Tossed in 11 rebounds as well. As a senior last year at Zachary, 53 catches, 960 yards, 12 touchdowns. He is an athletic freak. And they need him because I don't know how much you can count on Chris Hilton right now. I don't know how much you can count on CJ Daniels right now. And you don't have enough diversity in your skill set between Xavier Thomas and Aaron Anderson to give you the full complement of what you need. You don't. You've got Lacey, who's a possession guy, catch radius guy, tough guy, over the middle guy. You've got Thomas and Anderson, who are really good east and west, and Anderson's done some good things north and south. And I would love it if CJ Daniels and Chris Hilton were healthy because I think they bring a lot to the table as far as receiver goes. I think that CJ Daniels can be a really impactful player in the Southeastern Conference, though he hasn't been yet. And I think Chris Hilton would add a completely new dimension to this offense, but we've talked about that since week 1, and we haven't seen him out there. It's not his fault. Brian Kelly said he does everything right. But if I'm sitting here analyzing LSU's wide receiving core and I'm telling you how awesome Chris Hilton's going to be on Saturday, I don't know how seriously you can take me on that because he hasn't been able to play. But Trey'Dez Green gives you a different skill set, a red zone skill set, a third down skill set, and maybe most importantly, Trey'Dez Green might give you some easy throws because his ability to go up vertically differentiates him in a big way from defensive backs and might make things a little bit easier for Garrett Nussmeier. If y'all were watching the game on Saturday, Garrett Nussmeier was having to throw the ball into tiny windows. He was putting the ball in guys' face masks. We know we talked about the last throw to Aaron Anderson. Like, the ball was having to be placed right on the money. You don't necessarily have to put it right on the money to Trey'Dez Green. Trey'Dez Green is so big and so physical and so gifted, he can make it work. Now, I don't know how much of the offense he knows. I don't know how good his route running is. And I talked to him about this like 4 weeks ago when they brought all those freshmen that one day to media availability. They brought Deshaun Spears. They brought Trey'Dez Green. There was one other true freshman they brought out there, whoever. But we talked to Trey'Dez Green. And I kind of I was like, have you had to work on like route running and stuff? Because I'm imagining in high school you could kind of just run past everybody and jump over everybody. He's like, yeah, like it's been an adjustment. Like they've had to do a lot of coaching there because when you are that much more athletic and bigger than everybody else in the high school field, there's just not a lot of technical ability that you need. You got all the physical gifts that you could possibly want. So it's going to take some time, but I think he can make big. It takes some time to be as well-rounded as he needs to be. He can make some plays Saturday. He made some plays this past Saturday. The question is, what does it do to tight end? And I'll tell you, I mean, you know that Mac Markway left and that you only have 3 on scholarship right now. Now you're moving Trey'Dez Green out. You heard Brian Kelly say it. That's not like we'll give it a look. Like, that's what we're doing moving forward is what he said. He's playing wide receiver. So now you only have 2. You've got Mason Taylor and you've got Kamorian Pimpton. And I went back and looked at the snap counts, and it's pretty jarring and not surprising at all, but the numbers are what they are. Mason Taylor played all 79 snaps against Ole Miss. He has missed 6 snaps all year, and 3 of those were against Nichols when the game was decided. He's basically missing less than 1 snap a week, and he had them all. So he's not coming off the field, and that's fine. I'm happy with him on the field all the time. If he's okay playing 79 snaps and he's not compromised, which based on the fact that he had a huge, he had 3 huge catches on the last drive, I don't think he was gassed. He seemed to be okay to me. Looked good making that run that didn't count all the way into the end zone on LSU's last drive of regulation. So if he goes down, you're going to have to make some moves, and you might have to bring a walk-on along that can help you block a little bit. We'll see. I don't know how ready Pimpton's ready to play or not. But with Trey'Dez Green moving on, it's Mason Taylor's whole gig there, which is not different than it has been all year, but your numbers are getting very, very thin there at tight end. But I like the move. I think it helps LSU. They need some diversity in the passing game, and it makes things a little bit easier for Garrett Nussmeier, and I think Trey'Dez Green gives you that option coming up on Saturday, and I think you'll see that for sure coming up in the ball game in Fayetteville. We got plenty to do here on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. Come on by and see me tonight. Sports Trivia at 8:30. We'll be watching Major League Baseball playoffs. There's probably some action on. You can drink some cold beer, eat some award-winning jumbo chicken wings, which is always a fantastic way to spend a Tuesday, and win some gift cards. Be giving out gift cards for all 5 rounds of trivia. Bring a team. Come by yourself. It's always a great time, and we'll get you out of there before 10 o'clock each and every Tuesday. Nicholson location, 8:30, Plucker Sports Trivia. They bring you our Tuesday shows each and every week. And, of course, our opening drive brought to you by Genesis of Baton Rouge. Genesis of Baton Rouge. Come back with our guy Sharief Ishaq on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety, big deal in the bathroom. May not feel that way to you, but if there's an aging loved one in your life, it is important there. It can be a hazardous spot. Help with that. One Bath and Closets can do it. You come in, you can put in some non-slip floors. You can put guardrails in some hazardous areas like the tub and shower. You can put a walk-in tub, make things more convenient, safer. You can also put things like benches in the shower to help out. It's not just making things aesthetically beautiful with One Bath and Closets, even though they can do that for you. It's not just about customizing things for you, even though they can do that. Sometimes it's about safety. And if you've got an aging loved one in your life and you think, man, maybe some help in the bathroom might be a good idea, just contact David Duvall at One Bath and Closets, get that free consultation, and start that process today. You can check them out online at onebathandclosets.com. You can find them on Instagram as well. It's David Duvall and One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Hope your work week's off to a good start. Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Usually we have our guy Sharief Ishaq in hour number 2 on Tuesdays. We're going to move him up because he got some obligations in Saints land coming up here in the next hour. So we'll jump out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline right now and chat with our guy. Sharief, how are we doing?
I remember that time when the Saints had a good start to the season.
That was good, wasn't it? Well, let's start here because this is where we have to start. We'll back up and we'll go to Sunday and then we'll talk about Thursday. But I want to start here. Is this a must-win for the Saints and Dennis Allen on Thursday?
I mean, just go ahead and ring the bell. 100%. They've lost 4 straight games at this point. Like, what isn't a must-win for this team? This team is reeling in a very bad way. I mean, I would say, if they were playing competitive football the last 2 weeks, I would say maybe they can kind of get away with not being a must-win, but now it's a must-win. I mean, for multiple reasons, it's a must-win.
Did you see a lack of effort in the fourth quarter on Sunday? They lost the fourth quarter 20-0. They weren't going to come back and win anyway, so it was still going to be a loss. Did you see a lack of effort? Did you see a team that wasn't playing well?
I think Cam Jordan said it perfectly yesterday when it comes to, the way they played defensively. It's embarrassing. So, yes, lack of effort. Looks like they didn't care. Looks like they weren't trying. It was just ugly. I mean, that's just something I haven't seen under, Dennis Allen. It almost feels like, man, they've hit that wall, and it feels like they've given up. And that's sad to say and see 6 games into a season.
I mean, I've sat here. Everything's on tape. Like, it's not like I'm hiding from anything, but I have been critical of Dennis Allen from January through August. And so I don't feel like I want to like pile on and suggest that this guy's got to go or fire the coach. But it's like, doesn't that feel like the beginning of the end when you feel like there might be a lack of effort or accountability, or it's embarrassing? Like that to me feels like it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, but let me just say it this way, Hunt. He is just part of the problem.
Sure.
He isn't the entire problem. Like, we can spend an entire show about where all the problems lie with this team. Sure, you're right about Dennis Allen, but firing Dennis Allen is going to do nothing. This team isn't going anywhere anyway. If you fire Dennis Allen, what does that accomplish? Maybe it sparks them and they win 8 games. That's not, I guess, that's not what they're trying to do here. 8 games isn't good enough at all. I mean, this franchise is used to winning, the double-digit games, used to getting to the playoffs. Fire him and, let's just say they go with Darren Ridgely. It's the interim coach. What is that going to do? It does nothing. So that's why I just don't see them firing Dennis Allen. I think they have much bigger problems that, they need to address in a major way, Hunt. I mean, I am talking about their lack of ability to draft, their lack of ability to, develop those players, lack of ability to, maintain and keep those players healthy. And it is just a long list of things that, we can keep on going on about. But there's a lot of dirty hands in this, man. Mickey Loomis is involved in it. Jeff Ireland is involved in it. I mean, no one is like, is absent from the blame. A lot of these people need to be blamed for the downfall of the Saints. It just can't be Dennis Allen that's the scapegoat. It has to be at every single level, from top to bottom.
No, I'm with you. And I'm not suggesting that he's like poisoned the franchise and that they've got to get rid of him. I'm just suggesting like it's pretty evident there's going to be a change. I just don't see a way out of that at head coach. I don't think you can get 3 years and have no results to back any support, in my estimation.
I'm 100% with you on that for sure. I think that just like you're right about that, because it's all on paper, it's all on film, it's there. I mean, the only excuse, and I know people aren't going to like this, is that they're going to use injuries as an excuse for what's going on right now, and they could possibly say, well, they were doing well until Eric McCoy and Taysom Hill got hurt. They were high flying offense. But Hunt, there's no guarantee your team can stay healthy an entire season if you run it back again next year. There is no guarantee. Who says that they won't get hurt in game 1 and you have the same problem again? It's just, once again, it's a roster thing, and yeah, it is a coach thing at times. But in my opinion, if I'm going to do it, I would do it after the season, because it accomplishes nothing during the middle of a season where you're not going anywhere anyway. So, yeah, I would be on board with him, with them making a coaching change. But that should not be the only change they make whenever it comes to this franchise after this season.
What did you see from Spencer Rattler on Sunday?
I saw a guy who was comfortable in the bootleg, the play action in the first half, but then Todd Bowles, being a good defensive coach, made the adjustments, and they started bringing the house. They started bringing the pressure, and no matter what they did, it just did not work. I mean, I think they kind of went away from the play action and bootleg in the second half. Now, I don't know if it's because the pressure would affect him. I still would have run with it, but after that, I mean, he looked like a rookie. He looked like a 5th-round pick. He was just tossing up some passes. I thought the first interception was a good play, a little underthrown, which is a good play by Zion McCullum. But, look, that's a good defense. I know they gave up a lot of points against the Falcons. I still think that's a good defense, and they got after him. They did what you're supposed to do against the rookie, and you kind of hope you can get a little bit more of like the first half, Spencer, in this game against. It's going to be a very good Broncos defense. So we'll probably be without Surtain, but you'd like to see a little bit more of that first half for the entire game. It's easier said than done, but I mean, he showed flashes. I mean, I thought the promise was there.
I think I saw on Twitter from you on Sunday the Saints defense age looked like they were showing. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, like 15 missed tackles. I mean, you just arm tackle after arm tackle. You saw Chris Godwin score on a little dump out that should have been a 4 or 5 yard gain, turn into 55-yard touchdown. You saw the running back Bucky Irvin on a basic run to the left turn into like a 35, 40-yard gain because there were 5 missed tackles. It's showing age, it's showing injuries, it's showing a little bit of everything. It's showing a lack of effort. It's a bad combination of things. This is Saints defense, man. 50 points. They haven't done that since 2012. It's the worst defensive effort since Dennis Allen became the head coach. The one thing he's known for is defense. The last 2 games, it's just been miserable. And let's let you know, the Chiefs and maybe the Buccaneers could have probably put up a little bit more points.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at the yardage they gave up against Kansas City, and they just bogged down in the red zone, which you can give some credit to the Saints there, but it still was up and down the field pretty much all night in that one up in Arrowhead. All right, let's move to Thursday. What do you think the dome environment's going to feel like? It's going to be unique. That word is overused in every way all the time, and it's not here because this will be the first time Sean Payton comes back. It's a short week. It's a night game. There's some tension in the Saints organization. Like, there's never going to be a situation where it's felt quite like this. What do you think it'll feel like?
It's going to be a special, weird night. Special because Drew Brees inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame. Weird that, Sean Payton's on the other sideline trying to be Petty Payton and ruin that night. Don't put it past Sean not to bring everything out of the playbook and do anything he can to ruin that night. Petty Payton is coming to be Petty Payton on Thursday night. He is going to do everything he can to stick it to the Saints and Drew Brees. He doesn't care. Doesn't care what's going on that night. Doesn't care if it's homecoming. He's there to win. He's there to show everyone that he still has it. He could beat you with a rookie quarterback and, continue the Saints defensive woes. It's going to be a weird environment. I think fans are still bitter that he quit and retired on them. You're going to get a lot of boos, but I think you're going to get a lot of cheering too. I mean, the guy was here from 6 to 21, gave the Saints organization a lot of great years. I would never boo Sean Payton. I've always been a Sean Payton guy. I like Sean Payton. He did a lot for the organization and city. So to each their own. But it's going to be a very tense, weird, and special night Thursday night.
Look, you've seen Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield, and those guys have got a lot of snaps under their belt picking on that Saints defense. Bo Nix does not. What do you think that looks like for the Saints defense against a rookie quarterback?
Man, it's still weird quarterbacks. Like, Baker did it to them the other day. He was able to get out of, getting sacked. He was able to, pull off some Houdini, be, a little fancy at times in the pocket and get out of, what could have been a few sacks. I think Bo Nix could probably do that too. Man, he can run. I mean, he can run better than Baker Mayfield. I can't throw as good as Baker, but he could still get himself out of some bad situations, and that worries me. I understand he's a rookie, up and down, but what gives you confidence that the Saints defense can stop anybody right now the way they play the last 2 games? Maybe it was a wake-up call that they, that game Sunday. I don't know. It's a short week. Maybe that's also a good thing that they have to play in a short week after a disgusting game against the Bucs. I don't know. I don't know what team is going to show up. It's so hard to even think about what this team is going to do now.
You're kind of speaking to my second to last question there because it's an unanswerable question. Sometimes I ask questions and I know that they're not answerable, but I'm just curious your thoughts because you're around the team a lot and you talk to them a lot. How do you expect a roster this beat up to come back and play 3 weeks after 3 days after their last game?
Because you have to. I mean, there's no other choice. I mean, it feels like every week, man, you look at the injury report, you're like, man, how are the other teams not as beat up as the Saints? The Saints just seem to be the beat up team every game that they facing an opponent. I mean, 17 players on the injury report yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and assume that this injury report's going to look exactly the same today. Maybe a couple of players might be limited, or maybe a full practice. But yeah, I just have to at some point. I mean, you have to just show up and play. And they make tons of money to play. They understand it. There's no excuses. Everybody has to play that short week from a Sunday to a Thursday. I mean, they have zero excuses at this point. Show up.
All right. How does it go on Sunday night? That did not sound encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I have.
We'll let you get to work then. We appreciate the hard work, Sharief. Enjoy the dome on Thursday.
All right, man. We'll see. we'll see what happens Thursday.
We shall see. He's Sharief Ishaq, WDSU down there in New Orleans. I truly mean that. And like, I realize that I pay attention to words more than most, have a journalism background and writing now some a little bit and talking for a living. Like I notice words, I think more than most do. Unique is just absolutely annihilated in its use. I see it's pretty unique or more unique or kind of unique. Unique is one. That means there's one. That's unique. You can't be pretty unique. You can't be kind of unique. Can't be more unique. You could be unique or not unique. And Thursday in the Dome will be unique. You've got a fan base that's cranky. You've got a coach that led the organization to new heights across the sideline from his defensive coordinator. You've got Drew Brees going to the Hall of Fame. There's all those dynamics at play, and that's never been the case in the Superdome for the Saints in the history of their organization. So it's going to be unique and fascinating on Thursday to kind of see how that unfolds. But we'll be talking about it certainly for the rest of the week here on the Hunt Palmer Show. When we come back, Glen West, Go 24/7, talking Tigers on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, new partner here of the Hunt Palmer Show, and we are fired up about it. When you think Genesis, you should think luxury. And when you think luxury, don't necessarily just think dollar signs or that I can't afford a luxury vehicle. Go check it out. If you're going to get a new car in Baton Rouge, the odds are you're probably going to end up on Airline Highway. Just slide in there right there on Pico and go see Genesis of Baton Rouge. The dealership is state-of-the-art. It is first class. And when you're there, you're going to feel like a guest, not a customer. Their brand ambassadors put on a marvelous experience for you when you're shopping for your luxury vehicle and your Genesis. You can test drive them. And if you don't have time to go to the dealership, test drive those cars, they'll come to you. That brand ambassador will come to your home. They'll come to your work, and you can just drive around. And they'll let you know about all the features in these incredible vehicles. And then you can get that sense without taking time out of your day to go to the dealership. It's all about the experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single car on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. So go check out the website, do a little bit of browsing there, and then go see them right there on Airline Drive at PQ. Phenomenal experience, phenomenal people there at Genesis of Baton Rouge, and we're so fired up that they're the official auto dealer here of the Hunt Palmer Show. Check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show presented by Plucker's Wing Bar. Let's head back out of the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Just talked a little Saints. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. Talk some Tigers off that big win on Saturday night in Death Valley. Glen West covers the Tigers for Go 24/7. He's our senior writer, and he joins us every single Tuesday. He does so right now. Glenn, how we doing?
Doing great, Hunt. How about yourself?
I'm quite well. How was the environment on Saturday night in Death Valley through your 2 eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed to be a part of some of the great ones over the last 5-6 years. First coming to mind, obviously 2022, LSU, Alabama was up there in terms of just all timers, in terms of environment and obviously game and performance. But this one I think was right there. I don't know that it got to those kinds of levels and of magnitude just because of the you were playing Nick Saban. You beat Alabama for the first time at home, and I don't know how long. So that was a special environment. But I thought that Saturday really got about as close as you could ask for in terms of just the atmosphere and just the intensity of the crowd, the intensity obviously throughout the entire game. It was one of those moments where you're going to remember kind of where you were if LSU can kind of handle its business here going forward. And one of the things I talked about and wrote about last week is we wanted to see kind of if LSU could win that big game. They proved that they could do that. But now you've got to sustain it. Now you've got to go out there and you've got to prove that you're an actually legitimate contender by handling your business on the road against two teams that are very much a surprise, I would say, in the SEC this year. And, given on how the conference has looked in terms of execution and on the road, it hasn't been friendly to road teams so far in the first several weeks. So LSU, there's no quote unquote trap games for LSU here going forward. They have to treat every single opponent here with the utmost detail and focus and care. So I think probably the first takeaway was it was a great environment. Second takeaway is now that you've got this big top 10 win over a great opponent, you've got to go out there and you've got to handle your business the rest of the way for it to matter.
The defense on Saturday night, from a statistical standpoint, it wasn't dominant by any stretch, but by my eye, it looked like a huge step in the right direction. What impressed you about the LSU defense on Saturday?
I thought they were the story of the game. And look, I know that the final 3 minutes in overtime, the headliner is going to be Nussmeier. It's going to be Mason Taylor, Aaron Anderson, Kyron Lacey. And, all those guys did exactly what they were supposed to in those final 3 minutes. But LSU's not in that position to win that game if it's not for that defense. And I tweeted this out a couple different times throughout the course of the game. And Hunt, you can check me on this if I'm wrong, but I don't know that in the last 3, 4, 5 years, if I've seen a more dominant performance from the LSU front seven in terms of just the havoc that they created. You could tell in the third and fourth quarter there that Jackson Dart was feeling some ghosts, and they were getting on him pretty consistently. You saw his numbers dip significantly in that second half as well. I think that was a direct result of the success that LSU was having, getting into the backfield and forcing him in some pressure situations. So I thought that everybody from Braden Swinson to Whit Weeks to Greg Penn, Gio Paez, Savion Jones, Gabriel Relaford. There were a litany of guys that stood out in this game and had their moments to shine. Major Burns came off the edge a couple different times from that star position and made some pressures in the backfield. So I just thought that was a really, really well executed game plan from this front seven, and exactly kind of what Blake Baker, I think, has been preaching since January, February. This is not going to be a defense that clamps down and holds teams to under 20 points a game. But if they can go out there and make a few plays throughout the course of a game, if they can get off the field on third down, even if they give up some chunk yards plays every once in a while, I think that this defense has shown you that they are making some real strides. And I thought the front seven started it. They were the tone setters, and then Zy Alexander in the back end of the defense I thought played exceptional. I thought Ashton Stamps had his moments. So it was a real collective effort defensively, and just a very well needed look, I think, for a lot of people watching this LSU defense and looking for the kind of progress that they were talking about for several weeks here.
To your point in your question, I would go back to potentially that awful Mississippi State offense last year after Zach Arnett blew the whole thing up on offense, which was terrible. And then the year before that, actually the Arkansas trip with Malik Hornsby, a backup quarterback, they couldn't do anything. But against a competent offense, yeah, you're completely right. They haven't looked that good at the point of attack in a couple of years. So, yeah, for sure. Were you surprised they went with all the veterans in the secondary? No Deshaun Spears, not a lot of P.J. Woodland until late in that game. No Kylan Jackson. It was the old heads. It was Sage Ryan. It was Smith Major Burns. It was Jordan Gilbert. It was those guys, and it paid off.
Yeah, it was the guys that were on the field last year for that game. And I think that each and every single one of those players that was in the secondary that, let's face it, got cooked last year, they had a little bit of a prove it kind of deal going on there. And I thought that they did a really nice job. I wouldn't say I was surprised. We know Brian Kelly and what they ideally like to look like. They like to have a lot of their veterans out there in these SEC games. And unless you're a freshman that has really just kind of blown them away, I think that they're going to stick to their guns and stick to the guys that have the most experience. So I do think that there will be opportunities here going forward for Deshaun Spears, for P.J. Woodland, like you mentioned. But I thought that the veterans really composed themselves well. And one of the questions I had for BK yesterday in the press conference was just, is there an example of a player or a time where you pulled a player aside, or Blake Baker pulled a player aside, and you could really see kind of the impact he's had on that player and just what their responsibility is for that game. And the first guy he pointed to was Major Burns. And I know that he said yesterday that I think was the headline grabber was that Major's a piñata for everybody and that he's the easy guy to pick on. But he thought that Major played his best game, I think, probably over the last couple of years. And I think it was because he trusted his teaching. He trusted what they were telling him to do in that star position, and he went out there and he made some really, really nice plays. And I thought that he was a really big big reason for LSU's success on defense. And I think there was a lot of good that you can get out of this performance from a lot of those veterans here in the secondary as you move forward.
Glen West, senior editor, Go 24/7, our guest each and every Tuesday here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Nussmeier, more so impressed with his performance down the clutch, a little bit disappointed in the interceptions or the completion percentage. What did you see from him in totality on Saturday?
Yeah, look, I don't think BK could have put it any better. Brian Kelly could have put it any better, just in terms of what he talked about with Nussmeier after the game it was a growth game for him. For 56, 57 minutes, he did not look very comfortable. He was very inconsistent, and I think some of that had to do with Ole Miss's game plan going in. They weren't going to let the passing game really kill them, and that certainly proved to be true. But Nussmeier was also just missing throws. He was putting some balls up in the air that were very risky. But I think to his credit, when the game mattered most and when it was on the line, I mean, those two throws that he made on fourth down, the first one to Mason Taylor, which was a really great sign to get him involved in that last drive. I think LSU really kind of missed the ball there for most of the game of not getting him involved in the game plan. But for him to carry the load there on that that last drive on the fourth quarter, and then the throw to Aaron Anderson, man, I mean, it's going to be replayed for years to come. I mean, that was just a quarterback that trusts his arm, trusts where the player is going to be, trusts the position of it, and that was just an all-time throw right there. I mean, that's an NFL level throw, and I don't know that there are many quarterbacks in college football that could make that throw in that situation. So very encouraging that Nussmeier was able to kind of shake off the rustiness that he had for most of the game. And like I said, I think he's going to be better for having gone through that game for the foreseeable future of his career.
You talked about it a bunch at the beginning of this interview, but do you trust him to go up to Fayetteville and execute at the level that's required to beat a team that's probably not as good as them?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that they've shown they can take this thing. Look, they went on the road a couple weeks ago against South Carolina, and it did not look pretty. They've been in a lot of these games where it has not looked pretty. I would imagine that this one is very similar. It doesn't look pretty, but I do think that if it's a fourth quarter game, I really trust this team to get it done. And they've proven that now for 3, 4, 5 week stretch here. After that week 1 loss to USC, I think that they've really grown from that experience. And if they can, just kind of be in the ballpark, be in this game, whether it's a 1-score lead or a 1-score deficit, I trust this offense and defense to make some plays in the fourth quarter and get out of there with a win. So it's not going to be easy. It might look ugly at times, but I do think that this team has matured a lot over the last month or so, and they've still got all their goals right in front of them, and they've got the playoffs on the mind. And the only way that you can get there is by handling your business over the next couple of weeks on the road in the SEC.
I'll slip this in the back here briefly. Matt McMahon had an open practice for his basketball team yesterday, and he's done a really good job on the high school recruiting trail. I know there are a couple of big announcements coming up. How do you feel about the way that Matt McMahon is reloading the shelves with that recruiting effort from the high school ranks?
Yeah, they've done a really nice job. They've got a couple of top 70 players in the country in 2025. Matt Gilhull's a forward that they signed a few weeks ago, or got committed a few weeks ago. And then Mazzy Mosley is a really talented guard, actually played with Victorious Miller a little bit in California. They kind of came up the ranks in California together. So those are the two. They've got another one, Jalen Reese, that they're really keeping an eye on, that's committing tomorrow. I think it's down to LSU and Providence there. So they're going to be continuing to battle it out for him. And then obviously the big one is Chris Sinak in November when they get him on campus for that Alabama game. He's the big 5-star Louisiana recruit, and you don't get too many 5-star basketball recruits in Louisiana. So when you do get one, you got to try to do everything you can to land them. So I know that they're doing all they can right now. Thanks,
Glenn. We'll talk next week.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
Looking for your basketball coverage, baseball coverage, football coverage, recruiting coverage. I got it all for you at Go 24/7. Glenn with us each and every Tuesday here via the folks at Go 24/7. All right, we'll be back with more. Close out hour number 1, Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make LeVare's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. They've got the biggest screens around, and now you can bet and dine at ESPN Bet in person. Plus, sign up today for Cover 5's SEC contest. You can go to the Cover 5 app, click on Join a League, and enter the code LABRSEC24, and you can compete against me and over 100 other listeners here each and every week. There are season-long prizes. You're going to have to get real hot to jump in right now and win the season-long prizes, but you can also win weekly prizes as well. Download that app today. If you're not a member, get that Penn Play app. Bears Baton Rouge, your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
About coaching decisions by Lane Kiffin and Dan Lanning over the weekend. And now Ole Miss is really getting a lot of heat for the amount of players they're having go down when teams get first downs that stop the clock when it would otherwise be moving. So much so that Ole Miss released a statement about it. And I think that gamesmanship is real in sports, and that there are things you can do to tilt the scales in your favor, no matter the sport. And I heard Jacob and T-Bob talking about the fact that LSU repped this, fake injuries, when they were in school under Les Miles. Like, if there's a situation where we're struggling, they're cruising, and we need to slow things down, we're going to send that fake injury, and you got to do it.
I was sitting next to, at the game actually, just randomly had me sitting next to a guy who was a Canadian football coach in college. And he told me, he's like, yeah, we practice this all the time.
Yeah.
He said, there's no repercussions for it, so we're going to do it.
Correct. And that's the thought from Lane Kiffin. We're here to win the game. I don't really care how we do that. And that's part of winning the game. When we give up a big play, we're going to go down. But this is so obvious and so flagrant. Look, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I don't like when fans completely throw rationale and reason out the wind and go out for blood, because I think that you lose credibility when you are only thinking one way all the time. What's your team's right, your team's right, your team's right. And so, like, I don't have a problem with Lane Kiffin. This is starting to bug me a little bit because it's so obvious and it's so routine. It's not like they did it one time and was that real? They do it throughout a game, and I do feel like, even though I can't put myself in their body, it's so obvious to watch these guys standing there still and then go down and start grabbing something. Like, if you're going to do it, at least make a tackle and then lay on the ground and hold your shoulder or something. You just fall down. There's something about this that I can't quite get on board with. I don't have a great option, but I'm not in favor of demanding that guys have to miss 5 plays after they go down. Like, I don't know if that's the solution, but I think that these are evident enough that you can review the tape and issue some stern repercussions one way or another. And if we determine that this is happening too routinely and guys are leaving and coming back in 2 plays completely healthy, and I can see on the film they're just going down during the time between snaps without being touched, we're going to start docking scholarships. Like, we have to stop doing this because it's so obvious. And to the flip side, completely opposite of that, people were talking about Dan Lanning. In the situation, for those that missed it, with 10 seconds remaining, Ohio State had the ball down 1 at the Oregon 43. So we're talking about a 60-yard field goal in 3rd and 25 right now. And Lanning intentionally sent a 12th player out there to prevent a big gain, knowing that they would get the penalty. It would be a 5-yard penalty, and that time would come off the clock. So if you run a play and Ohio State gets 7 yards, which they just about did, and you get 6 seconds run off the clock, that 6 seconds isn't coming back on the clock. To me, this is something that they're going to look at, but it felt a little bit to me like the end of every single basketball game we ever watch, where the other team fouls every time to stop the clock, and you're not defending in the spirit of the rule, you're just intentionally fouling. This is an intentional penalty, understanding that you're going to run the clock as opposed to stop the clock. If they come up with some sort of rule to counteract this, I'll evaluate that and suggest whether or not I think it's okay. But this instance is so infrequent, I feel like, because you don't want to move them up, 5 yards all the time.
Yeah.
This is just it was 3rd and 25 with 10 seconds left. Like, that's an instance where I'm probably going to take that penalty. And, I guess theoretically you say, well, why don't they just put 50 guys out there? Which I guess they could have. I mean, you could have. I mean, I guess they were theoretically maybe trying to sneak on and see if they don't catch the 13 or don't catch the 12. But I didn't have as big an issue with that. Ole Miss doing this every time, and Shane Beaver mentioned it last week, and we saw it this week, and I just feel like, while I'm not suggesting LSU's never done it or Lane Kiffin invented it, it's so obvious. If they were just even better at camouflaging it, I probably wouldn't care. But you can't just have dudes standing there then acting like they got shot with a sniper rifle in the ankle, and then they're going to come back in a play later. It can't. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's I even at the game, I obviously didn't get to see too many replays, but it was just so obvious the situations where it happened.
And they got people pulling up the stuff on Twitter, and guys
Yep.
are literally just standing there with like their hands on their hips, and then all of a sudden they just crumble and grab their knee.
It's tough.
I need
it's
a
not
better
good
effort
look.
than that. I need
Not
a better
great.
effort than that. So I had a little, and it had nothing to do with the fact that it's LSU. I think I could objectively talk about this in any instance. But I think this will be looked at. Apparently, the NCAA is already looking at this Oregon deal and trying to figure out what they can do. And then you're gonna see, what the SEC can do to look at this. You're never going to know if a player is seriously injured by looking at them on the field. That's not doable. So you're going to have to probably do this retroactively. And if we want to start, doling out penalties, I think that's a reasonable suggestion for what's not in the spirit of the sport. But that's just my thought on that. If you missed any of the first hour, catch it on demand. We're brought to you by Pluckers every single Tuesday. We'll come back and talk about the college football playoff picture on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is that website. Look, LSU's out of town, so you're probably not going to Fayetteville. It's kind of hard to get there. Pretty easy to get to the couch. You're going to watch the game on TV. Why not have the best home entertainment system and situation possible? Maybe you don't even know where to start with that. I can tell you. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. Mitchell Fisher and his team are fantastic to work with. They can provide the television and the speakers for you. They can mount that television, get the speakers mounted. Ours are up flush against the ceiling, and the sound is fantastic. Everything can be controlled through an app on our phone. We can sync multiple TVs, the sound on the surround sound in multiple rooms with one television, so that if you're at a game watch party, you don't have to worry about one room being here with sound, one room being there with sound. Make it the best. Audio Video Security Solutions can do that. Check them out online, avssla.com.